I saw my daughter counting loose change at a CVS register on a cold November afternoon, and I knew before she even looked up that something was very wrong. She was at the CVS on Briarwood Avenue, 2 miles from my house in Greenfield, Ohio. My grandson Charlie was standing beside her, holding a box of children's Tylenol and a single granola bar, watching his mother stack quarters next to a small pile of crumpled ones and fives. The total on the register was $9.47. She was counting out the last 47 cents in nickels. I'd given her a check for $25,000 14 months earlier. Her grandmother's inheritance, money my own mother had saved over 40 years of careful living. I'd handed it to my daughter at my kitchen table and told her it was for emergencies, for her future, for Charlie's college if she wanted it that way. She'd cried. She'd said she would keep it safe. Now here she was, counting nickels for a box of children's Tylenol. She looked up when the cashier thanked her, and that's when she saw me. Something moved across her face so fast I almost missed it. Not embarrassment, not surprise. Fear. The kind that comes when someone's been trained to be afraid of being caught. It disappeared in less than a second, and she pulled her son close. "Dad," she said, "I didn't know you came to this CVS." "I live 2 miles away," I said. "I've been coming to this CVS for 11 years. She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. Charlie ran over to give me a hug around the knees, and I scooped him up and held him for a moment longer than usual. He felt lighter than I remembered. Kids are supposed to get heavier every time you see them. I waited until she'd gathered her bag, until we were outside on the sidewalk with the November wind cutting through us, until Charlie had gotten distracted by a dog tied up near the entrance. Then I asked her quietly, "Where's the money I gave you?" She didn't answer right away. She watched Charlie for a moment. Then she said, very carefully, very quietly, the way a person talks when they're not sure who might be listening even on an open sidewalk, "He had me put it in a joint account. Him and his mother helped me set it up. They said it was for investment purposes." Him. She couldn't say his name. Her husband of 4 years, the man I'd welcomed into our family, the man I'd thought was steady and responsible and good for her, she called him. "Monica," I said, "look at me." She looked at me. "Are you safe?" She pressed her lips together. "I'm handling it, Dad." That was the wrong answer. Parents know when their kids are lying. They know even when the kids are 31 years old and trying to sound reassuring. I took both of her hands in mine right there on that sidewalk. "I need you to tell me 2 things," I said. 1, where is the $25,000 right now? 2, when did you last spend money on yourself without asking permission first? She started crying. Not loud, she barely made a sound. Just tears running silently down her face while she held herself completely still. That stillness scared me more than anything else. People who've been broken learn to cry without making a sound. Charlie was still watching the dog. Good. She told me what she could. Her husband Shane and his mother Wanda had convinced her, about 16 months ago, to consolidate everything into one household account for efficiency. She'd signed paperwork she hadn't read carefully enough. The $25,000 had been transferred. She now received $75 a week in cash, had to keep every receipt, and had to text a photo of any purchase over $20 before making it. She hadn't had her own credit card in over a year. She hadn't been to see me without Shane knowing about it in over 18 months. Her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and the color drained from her face. "I have to go," she whispered. "I was only supposed to be at the pharmacy for 20 minutes. Monica, I'll call you." She was already reaching for Charlie, already putting her composed face back on like a mask. "I promise, Dad, I just need a little more time." I watched her buckle Charlie into her car. Watched her pull out of the parking lot. Watched until I couldn't see her taillights anymore. Then I sat in my own car for 4 minutes. I spent 30 years as a forensic accountant for Midwest Federal Banking Group. My job for 3 decades was to follow money, to find where it went when people tried to hide it, to reconstruct financial trails that other people had deliberately obscured, then present those findings to regulators, attorneys, and federal judges in terms clear enough to put fraudsters in prison. Mortgage fraud, insurance fraud, wire fraud, elder financial abuse, embezzlement at every level from bank tellers to C-suite executives. I'd seen it all. I knew exactly what my daughter had just described. I'd seen it 100 times, it just had never been her before. I pulled out my phone and called Rex Dunbar. Rex had been with the Fraud Investigation Unit at the Ohio Attorney General's office for 22 years before retiring. We'd worked a dozen cases together over the decades. He answered on the second ring. I said, "It's me, I need something fast." I gave him Shane's full name, his mother Wanda's full name, and the name Monica had mentioned, Meridian Home Ventures. Rex said give him 24 hours. I said I'd give him 12. He called back in 9. What he found wasn't complicated, it was just ugly. Shane's first marriage had ended in a civil lawsuit filed by his ex-wife 3 years before he'd met Monica. She'd alleged that Shane forged her signature on a home equity line of credit application, withdrew the maximum approved amount, $38,000, and transferred it to an account in his name alone. The lawsuit had settled out of court with records partially sealed, but partially meant Rex could still see enough to understand the shape of what had happened. Wanda had 2 complaints filed against her with the Ohio AG's Consumer Protection Office. Both involved young married couples where the wife had personal savings or an inheritance. Both had been pitched on something called a home equity growth vehicle. In both cases, the money had moved into an LLC. In both cases, the LLC had done nothing with it. One couple had eventually dropped their complaint. The other case was still technically open. The LLC was Meridian Home Ventures. I pulled up the Ohio Secretary of State Business Registry that night at my kitchen table. Meridian Home Ventures LLC formed 22 months ago. Registered agent, Wanda. Members, Shane and Wanda jointly. I scrolled through everything I knew how to read after 30 years of forensic work. The LLC had received 2 outside deposits in its entire existence. One for $14,000. One for $25,000. Monica's name wasn't attached to the second one anywhere. Just the transfer date, 14 months ago. The same week Monica had signed the account consolidation paperwork. I sat at that table until 2 in the morning, not panicking, thinking. The next afternoon, Shane called me. I'd been expecting it. Monica had probably mentioned running into me, and Shane was smart enough to know he needed to manage the narrative before I started asking questions. He was warm, solicitous. He called me sir twice in the first 90 seconds. He said how much he appreciated everything I'd done for Monica, how seriously he took the responsibility of caring for her. Then he got to it. I want to be straight with you, sir, because I know how much you mean to Monica. She's been struggling for a while. Anxiety, some depression, a little of what her doctor thinks might be early mood cycling. She doesn't always remember conversations accurately. She sometimes perceives situations as being more alarming than they actually are. I see, I said. I just wouldn't want you to be worried about something that isn't what it seems. We're really focused on getting her the right support right now. I let a pause sit there. Then I said, Shane, I appreciate you calling. Actually, I've been meaning to reach out myself. I heard from Monica that you and your mother have been exploring some investment opportunities. I spent 30 years in forensic accounting. I'd love to take a look at what you've got and see if I can offer any input. The pause on his end lasted almost 3 full seconds. In fraud investigation, 3 seconds of silence after an invitation to explain your finances tells you everything you need to know. That would be wonderful, he said. That's a great idea. We agreed on Saturday dinner at my house. I told him to bring Wanda. He sounded delighted. I hung up and sat very still. I needed to reach Monica before Saturday without Shane knowing about it. Her cell phone was monitored. She'd told me that on the sidewalk. So I drove that afternoon to the house of my neighbor Greta, an 80-year-old woman who'd known my family for 30 years and had a landline that nobody had ever thought twice about. I used Greta's phone to contact the dental practice where Monica had once worked as a hygienist, where she still had a professional relationship with the office manager. I left a message through her. Call this number, not your cell, Thursday at 2 p.m. Monica called at 1:58. She'd found something, she said. 3 days ago in the home office looking for Charlie's immunization records. A folder she'd never seen inside. A typed document labeled Behavioral Incident Log going back 2 years. Date after date, event after event, all in Shane's handwriting. Episodes of Monica becoming agitated, expressing paranoid concerns, demonstrating memory impairment. None of it had ever happened. She'd read the whole thing 3 times, trying to remember whether she'd somehow forgotten her own behavior. She hadn't forgotten, it hadn't happened. There was also a draft from a family law firm still carrying a version number in the file name titled Petition for Sole Legal and Physical Custody of Minor Child. I listened to her breathe before I spoke. Monica, I said, I need you to understand something. You are not losing your mind. What you've been experiencing has a name. It's called coercive control, and it is a deliberate process, something one person does to another person systematically over time. You didn't fail to notice it. You were prevented from noticing it. That's not the same thing. She was quiet. I need you to understand one more thing, I said. I've been following the money. I know about Meridian Home Ventures. I know about the $25,000. I know about Shane's first marriage. And I know about your mother-in-law's complaints with the AG's office. I heard her inhale sharply. What I need you to do, I said, is come to my house Saturday evening. Tell Shane you want to come to dinner with him and his mother. Tell him it's important to you that we all get along. Can you do that? She said she could. Saturday, I set the dining room table with the good dishes. I made pot roast, which I'd been cooking for 40 years and could do in my sleep. By the time Shane and Wanda arrived at 6, the house smelled like something warm and ordinary, and I had forensic worksheets spread across one end of the table under the pretense of reviewing their investment materials. Wanda took command of the room within 2 minutes of walking through the door. I've met her type before, the kind of person who enters a space and immediately starts redistributing its center of gravity toward themselves. She commented on my kitchen, on the neighborhood, on what a lovely house I kept for a widower. She said it exactly like that, with the emphasis arranged just so. Shane played the devoted son-in-law, warm, helpful, full of small courtesies. He poured water without being asked. He complimented the pot roast. He called me sir. Wanda began explaining Meridian Home Ventures about 20 minutes into dinner without me asking. I took notes on a legal pad. I asked clarifying questions. I let her talk. The beautiful thing about a family-held LLC, she said, is flexibility. Monica's funds aren't lost, they're working. We've been very conservative with the investment strategy, very protective of the principal. She can access it whenever she needs it. Can she? I said. Of course, it's a family arrangement. Wanda, I said. I accessed the Secretary of State's business registry this week. I looked at the LLC filing history, the deposit records available through state filings. I didn't see Monica's name anywhere on the membership documents. The room went quiet. Shane set down his fork. There may have been a clerical oversight when the paperwork was filed. His voice had changed. Not much, but enough. A clerical oversight, I said, for 14 months. We should have our attorney review everything. Before we get to attorneys, Shane said, and now his voice had lost its warmth entirely. He looked at me across the table the way someone looks at a problem they're calculating how to eliminate. I think we need to talk about Monica's situation. Her mental health situation. Let's, I said. She's not well. I know it's hard to hear. She has episodes. She loses track of conversations, becomes paranoid, makes accusations. Her doctor is very concerned. Which doctor? I asked. Dr. Alan Morse at Green Family Practice. I spoke with the billing office at Greenfield Family Practice on Thursday, I said. Monica hasn't had an appointment there in 26 months. She isn't being actively treated by anyone. Shane's jaw tightened. The kitchen door opened and Monica walked in from the hallway. She'd arrived 40 minutes earlier through the back, while I was greeting Shane and Wanda at the front. She'd been in my study with Rex Dunbar, who was not, as far as Shane and Wanda knew, anywhere near the state of Ohio that weekend. She was holding the folder she'd found in Shane's home office. Her hands were steady. Monica, Shane said. He said it the way a person says a word they've decided to use as a warning. What are you doing here? You told me dinner was at 6, she said. I'm here at 6. He looked at the folder in her hands. Where did you get that? From the file cabinet in the home office. She set it on the table. Our home office in our house. Wanda made a sound. Shane pushed back his chair. Sit down, I said. He looked at me. Sit down, Shane. He sat. I opened my own folder. I laid out everything Rex had found, one page at a time. The civil lawsuit from Shane's first marriage, the 2 AG complaints with Wanda's name attached, the LLC filings, the deposit date, matching the week of Monica's account consolidation. I set each page flat on the table the way I'd done in conference rooms and before regulators and in courtrooms for 30 years. Methodically, without anger in my voice. Wanda's face cycled through several different arrangements before settling on outrage. This is absolutely outrageous. You've been investigating your own family. I've been investigating 2 people who committed financial fraud against my daughter, I said. This is defamatory, Shane said. His voice was controlled now, recalibrated. You have documents from a partially sealed proceeding, unsubstantiated complaints, and you have. I have 30 years of forensic accounting experience, I said. And I have a former senior investigator from the Ohio Attorney General's fraud unit sitting in my study right now. He came down from Columbus yesterday. He's reviewed everything. 4 seconds of silence. You're going to regret this, Shane said, and now he was looking at Monica. You think your father has protected you? I have a behavioral log going back 2 years. I have documentation. You fabricated it, Monica said. Her voice was quiet, not shaking, quiet. I know you fabricated it because I was there for every single date in that log, and none of what you wrote ever happened. That is exactly the kind of thing that demonstrates. Shane. I let his name sit there. The only thing you've demonstrated tonight is exactly what I already knew. You came here thinking you were managing a worried old man who could be charmed and redirected. You're not very good at recognizing when you've walked into someone else's trap. He started to say something else. I raised my voice toward the hallway. Rex. Rex came through the doorway and nodded at Shane and Wanda in the way a person nods when they're identifying subjects for the official record. The front door is behind you, I said. Shane stood for a long moment. He looked at Monica one more time with the expression I recognized from every financial abuse case I'd ever worked. The expression of someone recalculating whether they still have leverage. He decided they didn't. He and Wanda left without another word. I listened to the car pull out of my driveway. Monica stood at the dining room table, looking at the open folder, for a long time after the engine sound faded. I thought I was losing my mind, she finally said. I know. For 2 years, I genuinely believed something was wrong with me. I know. How do people do that to another person? I thought about 30 years of conference rooms. Every fraudster I'd ever watched escorted from a building. The way financial abuse always ends the same way. Not with a dramatic moment, but with paperwork. With numbers that don't add up until someone who knows what to look for bothers to look. Carefully, I said, and they count on everyone around the victim being too polite or too trusting or too far away to look closely. That's their only real asset. The moment looks closely, it falls apart. She cried then. Really cried, the kind she'd been holding in for 2 years. I put my arms around her and led her. Charlie came running from the back of the house where he'd been watching something on my tablet, took one look at his mother, and climbed up between us without saying anything. Just pressed his small self into the middle of the hug like he understood exactly what it was for. 7 months later, Shane accepted a plea agreement. 2 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of forgery of a financial instrument. 2 years probation, an 18-month mandatory repayment schedule covering the full $25,000 plus statutory interest and surrender of 50% of marital assets. His attorney had argued for more favorable terms. Rex's documentation made that argument very difficult to sustain. Wanda's LLC was referred to the AG's Consumer Protection Division for a full investigation. 2 additional couples came forward. Meridian Home Ventures was administratively dissolved. Monica received full legal and physical custody of Charlie. Shane has supervised visitation on alternating weekends, overseen by a court-appointed coordinator, which he exercises less and less consistently as the months go by. Charlie is 8 now, in 2nd grade, and doing well. He joined a Saturday soccer league in the spring and scored his first goal in April. I was there. Monica was there, and she cheered so loud the other parents turned to look. We do Sunday dinners again every week. Monica is back working part-time at a dental practice 20 minutes from my house, building her hours gradually while Charlie's in school. She has her own checking account, her own credit card. She makes her own appointments, buys her own groceries, and does not photograph her receipts for anyone. Last Thursday, she came over for no particular reason, just because she felt like it. She brought Charlie in a grocery bag with ingredients for tacos, which is a meal I have failed at reliably for my entire adult life, and she stood in my kitchen teaching how to do it right while Charlie sat at the counter and provided loud, unsolicited commentary on my knife skills. At some point, she started humming to herself. Just some song I half recognized, nothing intentional. The way people hum when they're not paying attention to it, when they're comfortable, when they're somewhere that feels safe. I turned away for a moment so she wouldn't catch me getting emotional over a person humming in a kitchen. 30 years I followed other people's stolen money. I reconstructed trails that fraudsters thought they'd erased. I built cases and stood behind them and watched the consequences land where they belonged. I was good at it because I was thorough and because I didn't rattle easily, and because I understood that money is never really about money. It's about control, and control is always about fear, and fear always leaves a trail if you're willing to look. I never thought I'd bring those 30 years home with me like that. But I'll tell you this, what I recovered that Saturday evening at my dining room table wasn't my daughter's $25,000. That's coming back, payment by court-ordered payment, and every cent of it is going into an account with her name on it alone. That part is satisfying the way correct arithmetic is satisfying. What I got back was my daughter humming in my kitchen on a Thursday evening with nowhere else she needed to be. That one you can't put a number on.